Chip, he's Griff. He's actually Mike Griffith, but we love to call him Griff because it's just so much more economical and efficient, kind of like Jake Fromm and Tua Tagovailoa. Um, we are here for a special edition of Chip and Griff. Obviously, Georgia plays in the SEC championship this week. They play a team called Alabama. They have met before, maybe 11 months ago, I think, something like that. This guy is still scraping off road dust. He literally just pulled into the parking lot on his return from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Spent a few days out there, covered the game this past weekend. Why don't we start there, Griff?
Yeah.
You can read what he wrote on Dog Nation, obviously the Dog Nation app, but I'm curious about the vibe kind of that you got while you were over there. I don't know, excitement, anticipation. What did you experience?
Really very confident. Wasn't much of a vibe at all. Looked like business as usual. Georgia's, next victim, next team up. They're trying to win another national championship. It's the goal they've had since the day after the national championship game. They started working on repeating, and they don't look at Georgia as anything other than another bump in the road. Yeah, Georgia's playing well. Yeah, Georgia's coached well. Yeah, they feel like they're going to be prepared, and they're confident they're going to win. Tua said, yeah, they've got a good secondary and a good defense, but it's what he sees in practice every day, and he doesn't think it's going to be a problem. And I guess if I'd thrown 36 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions all year, I'd probably be pretty confident too. But it's interesting because I thought the best and worst of Alabama in one game against Auburn. Chip, the first half it's 17-14, and Auburn was gashing them. They had a 75-yard run called back, and I'm thinking, this Alabama team looks pretty beatable to me. But then the second half, Bama throttles down and scores 5 touchdowns and wins 52-21. And Tua got pulled in the fourth quarter, and so Hurts came in. And I don't know if Auburn just rolled over and played dead, or if Alabama just shifted into another gear. But the explosive plays were impressive, and that's what Alabama's done all year. Whether it's been in the first half or the second half. The scary thing is, I don't know if they've really put a full game together yet.
Yeah, which is something that Georgia keeps talking about. When are they going to play a complete game? I'm curious, real quickly, on that 75-yard touchdown run early on. It was called back for a holding. I actually never went. Was it a good call? Because that's the thing. All Georgia fans are hyper sensitive on this subject.
Yeah, well,
was that a good call?
Well, Gus
holding?
Didn't think so. Gus Malzahn
he got a personal
penalty.
foul. Yeah,
it looked like the flag came late behind the play.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it looked like to me.
Right.
So was it a good call? Maybe, but if so, it came late, and Auburn head coach felt strongly enough about it that he drew a flag. So
yeah, I'm going to weigh into that on that this week. Just the whole officiating thing. You were at the national championship game last year. Obviously, there were some bad calls in there. There's an interesting debate, in social media this week, because this whole thing has been, stirred back up again about, Georgia fans love to say Tyler Simmons was on sides, and he clearly was.
The replay shows he was.
He was clearly on sides. The flip side of that, Alabama fans will say, well, we were a false start, so it should have been called a false start anyway. But it's like when you start playing that coulda, shoulda, the fact of the matter is a yellow flag flew for offsides, which negated a blocked punt. So regardless if you were a false start or not, yes, if they'd have been on, and I think it's clear those Big Ten officials weren't very good that day, and we'll get a little bit more on that. But if it's a false start, then the play is whistled dead, so the block punt doesn't happen. They back up 5 rather than moving up 5 like they did. McCole Hardman almost broke punt return, but as it was, Georgia had very good field position afterward. But they back up 5 yards. Who knows how that would have made a difference? I'm not going to get into the face mask that wasn't called, the punch that the Alabama guy made on the Georgia guy, a bunch of other things. But you were at the game. You were there as ultimate impartial observer. You were there still covering Tennessee and covering it for SEC country. I think that what happens on Alabama, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is it's a subconscious thing that happens. It's just assumed that, the other one was the Tua scrambles away and gets a third down run gain where Roquan Smith got held in the backfield on the scramble play. That was 4 right there that we rattled off. There was a bunch of bad ones. Officiating is officiating, but what was your view of that?
Well, I mean, I kind of agree. I think great teams tend have a tendency to get calls, kind of like the way Greg Maddox used, stretch the strike zone a little bit. I mean, he had
And
such,
Glavin.
and when officials, as you said, it's probably a subconscious thing, but it's something certainly that the league should look at. It's something that Greg Sankey should address. I don't think I don't think you can blame the Alabama players or Nick Saban. I mean, they're just playing the game. I mean, it's somebody else's job, but there's no question there were a couple of penalties that hurt Georgia. But ultimately, Georgia hurt Georgia in the end with that broken play in the secondary. I mean, you can't have a senior safety get looked off and a corner, fail to reroute the guy. And Kirby said, we learned our lesson last year. And now you take a look at it, and Georgia leads the country, Chip, with the fewest, chunk plays of over 20 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a teaching point. Kirby's made sure those safeties. We know how he went after Richard LeCount at the start of fall drills. I still remember the story. You can't count on LeCount yet, because Kirby called him out and said he's got to do a better job. And they've worked really hard to make sure that, they haven't gotten beat deep like that again. And to me, that's what this game comes down to. If Alabama can't make those explosive plays like they have against everybody else, are they good enough to sustain drives consistently if Georgia doesn't give them the big play? And conversely, is Georgia's secondary good enough to not give up those big plays? Is the front 6 or front 7 good enough to contain the run game to the extent that Kirby can continue to play that 2 deep scheme that keeps the big plays at a minimum? So that's kind of the essence. It's a strength on strength deal there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. And I it's a shame. I think Georgia is supremely hurt by Monty Rice not being in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think Monty Rice is anywhere close to Roquan
Well,
Smith.
Tate Crowder's going to be available to the media day. That's kind of an indicator,
Yeah,
I would say.
We'll talk to Tay, and Tay has done a great job. I mean, Tay has done a great, maybe be stretching, but Tate's done a very good. Tay has done a very good job. He's come a long way since he was converted from.
Let's answer this question here.
Go ahead.
Travis Clark says, "My boss is at work, a Bama fan, and offered me 15 points and 200. Any reason I shouldn't take it? Don't bet on football at this time of year. It's not fun.
Anti-gambling
It
advice.
absolutely ruins the game for you.
Yeah.
You'll have
you're all you're worried about is the points.
You'll have a miserable time. It'll be stressful. Just enjoy the game and save your money for the casinos or the blackjack table. I mean, right now where football
and Harris.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't. Yeah, save it for Harris. I'll tell you this, I wouldn't want to bet on any football games. I've seen games, Chip, that I thought were stone cold lock, and you just go, how did that happen?
Yeah.
How in the world did that just happen? And it seems like sometimes the more certain you are about something, those guys in Vegas, they build those hotels and fountains for a reason. It ain't because they're losing.
Yeah, that's why I haven't seen. Did the line move today? I didn't see.
Last I saw it was 13. But
I opened at 13 and a half, and I think it went down to 13.
It opened at 10 and a half, went up to 13.
Oh, okay.
But this time of year, anything can happen, and it's just enjoy the game. Like I said, this Georgia football team has fought so hard to get to this point. They've overcome so much in terms of what they lost with the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, 2 NFL starting running backs, go-to wide receiver, left tackle, 5-year starting front 7, myriad of injuries on the front offensive line. We're talking now about the middle linebacker being out. Just enjoy the process, man. And if they lose, you don't want to be throwing stuff mad because you lost money. That just makes it worse. And if they win, the fact that Georgia just beat Alabama should be enough to make you happy.
Yeah, good advice from Mike Griffith there, and I agree with that. I don't gamble at all. I don't put money on any of the games. The only thing I used to do one of those bowl pools.
Oh,
yeah,
those are kind of the confidence pool.
Yeah, but in that regard, it gives you a reason to be interested in the bowls because otherwise there's no reason to be interested when Idaho is playing.
And some of the other ones, right?
Yeah, and some of the other ones. So that makes it kind of fun. But hey, we're not endorsing gambling. Only legal gambling
at Harris.
At Harris in New Orleans, which is I think our odds are pretty good at
pretty
this point.
good. We're going to be there.
We'll be there. But hey, I'm the one that wrote, and I hope you had a chance to read my Towers take. Look, it's not Mount Everest, and now it's a mountain, but it's not K2. It's not Mount Everest, and I do think Georgia can do some things to win this thing. I think the thing that gets lost in when you start talking about a matchup like this, and you start talking about a team like Alabama, which you probably know this better than me. Some are saying one of the best Alabama team ever, the best
Yeah.
Alabama team Saban had. Of course, the undefeated team of '09. There was the team that didn't go undefeated. I don't know. The 15 team
Well,
was pretty doggone good.
the metric that makes that a legitimate claim is they beat everybody by 3 touchdowns or more, and
Yeah.
the only college football team in history that's done that is 1888 Yale. They
Okay.
did it with 12 in a row.
I saw it from your live shot. How did I
Yeah.
forget that?
So that's why. I
How could
mean,
we forget that 1888?
Yale team.
Yale
I
team.
didn't even know it was. Somebody told me, said, "Well, actually, this has happened before." I said, "When?" They said, "Well, 1888."
Yeah.
Yale, and I said, "Did they even play 12 games back then?" Apparently they played 13. I don't know who they played, but obviously a different era. But to beat everybody by 3 touchdowns
That's amazing.
in the SEC. Now, I saw
Yeah.
Michigan State beat every Big Ten team by double digits in 2013 en route to the Rose Bowl. That was a great program. Probably would have won the national title had they played Florida State or Auburn. But that was the year before a 14 playoff, and they didn't get invited. The great thing for Georgia is they do control their destiny, Chip.
Hmm.
They beat Alabama, and they're in.
Oh
Here's the
yeah.
curious question,
Oh
and
yeah.
I don't mean to take you too far off your point here,
No, sorry.
but does Alabama really have to win to get in the playoff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wrote it straight out. I mean, I said that to me might be the only dynamic that might favor Georgia in the least is that, well, not the only one, but that from a psychological standpoint, I mean, Georgia's going to this. They know what they got to do. I mean, this is a passport stamp. You win this game, you're in. You don't, you're not. I think it's as clear as that. But that's not necessarily the case for Alabama, and I think they might know it a little bit. I mean, I mean, they lose this game in a close game to Georgia, which I wouldn't think Georgia's going to blow them out. It's hard to see them drop. I've even seen some scenarios, though I don't believe any of them, but some of the national pundits kicking around out there that if you get into like the Massey Index and some other things, Georgia and Alabama are the two strongest teams in the country, and that just because they lose, why wouldn't they both go? But that'll never happen, especially after last year. I don't think that you would take a Georgia loser
Not a
in the
two-loss
playoff in
Georgia
this.
team overall, unless Oklahoma lost and
And
Ohio
Ohio
State
State
lost, and I
lost.
think UCF needs to lose. I don't think a two-loss Georgia gets in over an undefeated
What is their
UCF.
situation? They have a championship game.
They do, but they have quarterback down
Oh
also.
God,
But
yeah,
still, I mean, they beat Auburn last year. I mean, you just can't ignore that. I mean, I
yeah.
think they would deserve to be in if they go undefeated 2 years in a row, Chip.
Right. Yeah. I need to get some more questions here. There was a lot of
Sure.
stuff that came up here early on about Alabama paying referees. I don't think Alabama does that, and Alabama, like
Yeah.
anybody else, can't be responsible for the actions of every single alumni out there who may or may not do something. I don't think there's anything to that. I don't think it's conspiracy. Like I said, I think it's a subconscious deal that happens. It's just that's Alabama, so they couldn't have done anything wrong on that play, right? I think that's what subconsciously goes on, and I think the Big Ten officials in last year's championship game just did a horrible job. But this will be SEC officials, and the way it's supposed to work is Steve Shaw and the powers that be there at the SEC select the best officials from all the games this year based on grades. It's completely quantified on who's done the best job. I haven't seen yet who the officials
I
are.
haven't either. I don't
Um,
think they announced it till game day, right?
nah, probably not. Yeah, that would be a safe way to go about it. So that won't be an issue. I don't think Saturday. If anything, it could be one of those things you've complained so much about officiating coming in the game. There's been so much negative press about it that it may even go the other way. Maybe Georgia gets some favorable calls in this thing when it's all said and done. But the bottom line is Griff talked about. It comes down to matchups. Those are very very tough for Georgia. You start right up front, right in the middle on their defensive line. Quentin Williams. That's a
He's the best.
that's a he's. I mean, it's just a tough matchup. And when you start, Jake Fromm talked about this yesterday. When you start talking about front of pocket pressure, that's just a whole different equation than edge pressure. Edge pressure you can always deal with. You're always dealing with it. When you start getting up front pressure, so this is where the real challenge is. And as Griff alluded to a minute ago, I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing what Georgia's done on the offensive line of scrimmage. Sam Pittman in particular, with all the injuries they have. You think about Ben Cleveland out as a starter, Cade Mays out as a starter. So essentially, you've got your third string at right guard, Trey Hill, who is playing fantastic, by the way. Now, you get to a game like this, he's going to have to block Quentin Williams. Now you're talking about a
Wow.
different animal.
A first round top 5 pick against a true freshman.
Yeah,
Chip.
that's going to be interesting. Solomon Kinley, does a great job. Big guy, manhandler, great in run. But Georgia is a little bit shaky on the interior line and right tackle with Isaiah Wilson when it comes to pass protection. Andrew Thomas is Andrew Thomas. He's a
Do
fantastic
you
player.
think? And I saw, and I was obviously in Tuscaloosa yesterday, and I just read the Kirby transcript. But is Kirby a little irritated that Ben Cleveland's not ready to go yet? Because he said, "You guys ask me this every week, And well, of course we do. I mean, why would he be mad about that all of a sudden? It should Ben be ready to go, or should you think this would? I mean, because that would be big to have Ben Cleveland out there this Saturday.
It could be, but at this point, I don't know if Ben Cleveland. He's so gimpy. I actually happened to catch him
I mean, we
yesterday.
saw him out there practice. He's been out there practicing.
He's been
But didn't
practicing.
he sprain an ankle or something
He
like that a
sprained an
couple weeks
ankle on
ago?
top of the broken fibula, which
Yeah.
should be at this point that should be healed. Now you are talking about a 340-pound offensive lineman, 6'6", but we're 8 weeks now removed from having that repaired. I assume they probably went in there and put a screw in it. I don't know whether they did or not, but uh, either way, I saw him getting on the bus yesterday, and he had to run, and he was obviously limping. He's a big guy. He's doing punch shield. He's doing special teams, but it's been Trey Hill and Justin Schaefer in the games,
Yeah.
and not Ben Cleveland. So, and whether Kirby's irritated by it or not, I don't know. Kirby seems in various states of irritation all the time.
It's true.
But
Most coaches do.
they're trying to be perfect. They're trying to be perfect. So yeah, that's that whole line situation. Ben Cleveland will be dressed. He'll go. It was interesting yesterday, and I don't think it'll be a factor in the game whatsoever. But Daquan Hawkins Muckle was out there working out for the first time all year with the defensive lineman. And I wrote this in the practice report, which you can read on Dog Nation. But I said I wouldn't think that he is going to figure into anything when you haven't played all season and now you're working out. Maybe that's got something to do with being able to dress or something. I don't know, but that was interesting. The rest of Georgia's D line in front seven, you're going to have obviously Tay Crowder, Juwan Taylor, Natrez Patrick. I don't remember seeing a ton of Channing Tindall against Georgia Tech.
Quay Walker was out there.
Quay Walker was out there, so I saw him. I'm sure Tindall was out there. I just didn't see it.
Adam Anderson's emerging now, I saw.
He is. He's looking really good. Brenton Cox was okay after getting his bell rung pretty good against Georgia Tech. He's practicing. So from that standpoint, your health is good. Your running backs are good. Your wide receivers are healthy, which is very important. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Alabama, as great as they are on defense, has seen an offense that is diverse and as efficient as Georgia is right now. So that's going to be interesting for me. And I think I think Elijah Holyfield and DeAndre Swift could be difference makers in this game. I mean, that's one thing about going against a guy like Quentin Williams right there. You don't have to run at him. You can run somewhere else. And Georgia's got a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and their offensive scheme is going to be a big deal in this game.
Yeah, Jim Chinese got work cut out for him. Kirby likes to keep it on the ground. He likes to keep it balanced. They're going to want to run the football. One of the bonuses of running the football is that keep that clock moving and keep two off the field as much as anything. Georgia's done a nice job this year, I think, with time of possession. Obviously, Georgia's got some tight ends that can do some things with Isaac Nada and Charlie Werner. Potential matchups there. Alabama's got a good defense. I mean, we talk so much about how explosive their offense is, but don't forget they hung 2 shutouts in a row out there. They shut out LSU, and LSU put 36 on Georgia.
Yeah,
at LSU,
and
Alabama did it there, and they shut out Mississippi State as well. Mississippi State. They won that game 24-0 against the number one scoring defense in the country.
Here's a good discussion point from Jay. Always thankful, Riv. Love your name there on your Facebook handle there. What scares me is the other cornerback opposite of DeAndre Baker. Both corners look shaky.
I think Stokes has
Campbell.
looked pretty good,
I think
honestly.
Stokes look good.
Yeah.
Here's a let's talk about Georgia secondary for a minute. I love Griff and I have shared this all year. We've liked Stokes.
Since the Missouri trip.
Yeah, you remember Stokes comes in there, has a block punt,
Yeah.
4 pass breakups in that game, so they
Yeah.
were attacking him.
Yeah.
And
Drew
Drew
Lock.
Lock was, and
Yeah.
they couldn't get in there. I think Eric Stokes does a great job. Here's the one real positive about both Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes. There are not faster players on Alabama than there are those two guys.
Yeah.
This is what Georgia does so good about not letting people get behind them. They're going to play that shell coverage. They're going to play a lot of stuff where they're not going to let Alabama. So there's going to be a lot of underneath stuff. I mean, you could just go ahead and anticipate
And
that
Tua
now.
said that yesterday. He's
Yeah.
just going. Tua's is already putting it in his mind that he's not going to be able to push it downfield. He's going to take what's there. That's what he was talking about yesterday. I did a story, and you can see the video on Tua talking about how he plans to attack the Georgia defense. And they're these guys are already getting in the right frame of mind. I'll say that for Saban. Just as I've praised Kirby all year for keeping Georgia dialed in and tuned in and bought in, as Kirby recently said, Saban has his guys mentally prepared as well.
Yeah. I mean, these two guys, I mean, it's mirror images of the way they process, the way they prepare their teams. I expect both teams to be very well prepared. And that it includes mentally, being mentally sharp. I think we see that most of the time, especially this time of year. Let's touch on this because we're getting some questions about the Justin Fields equation. Um, I don't know if Justin Fields is a big part of the game plan or even a small part of a game plan in a game like this. Obviously he brings some different things to the table. Maybe some third and shorts, maybe some goal line situations if you're so fortunate as to get those. But I don't think in general we have some guys in here asking about, you think we'll see a package for Justin Fields? Or he didn't play against Tech until the game was in hand. So I don't know what you think on that.
I think what he does is important. I think one area that Georgia struggled has been short yardage. I mean, Holifield's 2 for 7 on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. He's been really bad on short yardage situations. I think Jake might be 3 or 4 or 4 or 5. I want to say Swift might be 3 out of 5 or 6. The guy that's 4 or 4 is Justin Fields, though. And interesting, I wrote down a little stat last night. Marcus Mariota, 17 of 17 for the Titans on 3rd and 4th or 1. I mean, this is a skill that NFL quarterbacks have, and I don't know, where Justin Fields is at with embracing that package, that Tebow package. But this is something you got to be able to do. This is part of the job, and right now, this is where Justin Fields helps the team the most. I don't understand. I understand that fans are excited about Justin Fields, but boy, Nick Saban is really impressed with Jake Fromm, and why wouldn't you be, Chip? I mean, Jake's at about 80% on 3rd downs since that bye week. He makes all the throws.
No, since Mike Griffith called him out.
3rd and Fromm.
Yeah, third and from. He's 80%.
That's what they worked on during the bye week, and he came out and said it. Kirby studies metrics. Like, I mean, Kirby doesn't. Kirby walks in, he'll see a speck on the carpet. I mean, he doesn't miss anything, and sometimes he'll kind of throw it out there to let us know that he knows, like, you guys can write whatever you want about this, but here's what's really going on. And I'm thinking, nobody even asked the question, right?
Yeah.
So Kirby's very well aware of everything going on. He knows about the short yardage issues. He knows that what Justin Fields has been able to do in those short yardage issues, and what that ability that Justin has, that dual threat ability, can do to a team in the red zone, which is where Georgia's had some struggles. And when you get in the red zone against Alabama, Chip, you better convert. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a Fields package, but if Jake's playing really well, you don't need to go to it.
That's right.
But if Jake and the offense are struggling in the red zone, or they go down there the first time they come up empty, or they're not able to move it, Kirby's shown you he'll play Justin in the game when it matters. He played him early against Kentucky without hesitation. That game was still in the balance. So I do think there's a Justin Fields package, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it.
Okay. The other area where I think Georgia has an edge is in special teams. Now, special teams, sometimes they're a big factor. Sometimes they're not that big of a factor.
Depends on the referee.
Yeah. So, Alabama gets a punt block last week.
How about that?
Again, what was the situation on that?
it just got outmanned. It looked like they didn't practice it enough.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing to see how bad the Alabama special teams unit. Now they're very good on punt cover.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I think they're number 2 in the country on, and obviously that's a
And they
strength
probably
for.
need to be. Yeah.
And Nick Saban knows who McCole Hardman is. That name came up when I was in Tuscaloosa, so you better believe Nick's not going to get beat by that guy. I doubt they even punt to him.
What's their kickoff coverage like? I mean, their kickoff man like. Are they big on
No,
the
they don't.
touchback?
No, they don't get a lot of touchbacks.
Yeah,
I
so,
want to say it's only about 35%, and their net
so
punting
there
is
could
even,
be some kickoff return.
there will be,
opportunities.
and the net punting is even worse. So, those are two really
That's
weak
an
areas.
advantage. What about their place kicker?
Place kicker not reliable. I think they got a new one in the last. They switched. No, they switched punters or mid-season, but
They've had 2 kickers as
I
well.
think they're
lately.
56 to 61 on extra points or something. Not. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's
they've missed.
amazing.
Yeah, 6. That's right.
It's
6. One of them's
amazingly
missed
bad.
5, and another missed 1.
It's amazingly bad. You would think Alabama would have great kicking and punting, but they don't.
So I mean, field
There-
position and kicking game matters. And
There's
it could
hidden
be-
yardage. There's hidden yardage there.
Right.
But you know what? Kirby's not happy either because I think Georgia ranks next to last in the country in kick coverage.
They were 113th going into the Tech game,
And they're
and they gave up a kickoff.
128 out of 129, and the worst in the country, Stanford.
Yeah. Well, how about that? You'd think they'd be a little more
You'd think
cerebral
so.
about it. The interesting thing about that, and Kirby
They
talked
are.
about this.
They are cerebral. They say, this is where we can get hurt the most statistically, so
It-
we're not going to go down there and try and hit those guys in the open
Yeah,
field.
we don't want to get injured. So one thing happened going back to the UMass game is, Rodrigo, I think, is 82% on his touchbacks. So 82% of the time you're kicking it out of the end zone that you're not getting a return, but it's the 18% of the time that he doesn't get it just perfect. So Kirby tried to work on that and asked for shorter kicks going back to the UMass game. Since then you've got 2 out of bounds and a 100-yard kickoff return.
So maybe Kirby should have left that alone.
It's just like, just kick it out of the end zone. And I think Georgia will be able to do that. I don't even know who returns kicks for Alabama. Maybe you can enlighten me on that. But
nobody scores enough to really.
Yeah, you don't know. Nobody knows who that guy is. But I assume they've got a pretty good guy back there. So I think that would be the best tack for Georgia to take. And Rodrigo is great in domes, kicking off the ground and with no wind and all that kind of stuff. So I think that will be an advantage. What have we missed there? In their secondary, they've had injuries in their secondary. Of course, they replaced a cornerback with a 5-star freshman. What's his name? Said a terrific time. What's his name? Sertain.
Yeah,
Sertain. Yeah. So he's come in and he's done great. But hey, I think there'll be opportunity. I don't think they've had a wide receiver core quite as sophisticated as Georgia's is. So I think Georgia will be able to make some hay on that, and I think Georgia will be able to run the football. I think if Georgia gets a 100-yard rusher, odds are very, very good that Georgia wins this game. Now, whether they do or not, we'll see. And that's Troy Sadowski, 1987 All-SEC Georgia tight end. Success running the football, throw when needed, control the clock. This keeps Tua watching the game. I agree with that 100%. Where do you stand? I guess the last integer in this thing is pressure on Tua. Georgia obviously doesn't naturally get pressure on, so if they're going to get pressure on him, you're going to have to blitz some corners. You're going to have to blitz some safeties. I don't like that, just saying it out loud. I don't think that's a good.
Well, Kirby's going to.
But you got to hit Tua some, I guess.
Well, Kirby's going to see how it goes. He's going to see if Alabama's really going to be patient. He's going to see if Alabama can execute their way down the field, and it's going to be a situation as well. Is Georgia winning? Is Georgia losing? I mean, Kirby's going to do what Kirby's going to do. He's going to try and play to his team's strengths as long as he can. And if Plan A is not working and the game's slipping away, well, then you'll see a Plan B. I mean, Kirby Smart's a great football coach, and he understands how to beat Alabama as well as anybody in the country. Had the best, Georgia had the best team in the country last year, Chip. They had Alabama beat. They had Alabama beat, and a cornerback didn't jam, and a safety didn't rotate over. They blew an assignment, and they lost the game because 2 guys didn't execute.
Yeah.
So Georgia had a window. They've had a whole year to think about it. And, Kirby can say whatever he wants about it, just so happens to be the next team out there. But you and I both know, talking to these young men every week, how determined they've been.
Yeah.
That carrot at the end of the rope It's been another crack at Alabama. They're
Especially
going to get it.
especially these seniors. They're the ones that, I mean, like Jonathan Ledbetter's been very passionate in what he said. DeAndre Walker, these kind of guys that were there and really
Marcus
tasted the
Gilliard,
bitter defeat.
Lamonte Gilliard,
Those goes and and Jake. I mean, Jake Fromm is extremely motivated for this game.
Terry Godwin.
So yeah, those guys and I think it'll be a good game. I don't think it'll be a 2 touchdown game for what it's worth. What I'm curious about? Last question. We got to go. We got 1 minute flashing up here on the screen on us, so we got to get out of here. But I'll go back and check your comments. One thing I'm curious about is just the vibe among Georgia fans. I haven't really heard or felt the buzz that I did last year with Georgia going to the SEC championship game. I think that's because there's some doubt. Let us know. Are you going? Let's see some thumbs up now. Are you going to the game? Have you got big plans to go to the game? You're going to tailgate? Are you paying big money for your tickets? Because that's something that Georgia's going to need in their favor again. They're going to need that crowd to back them in the bins, as they say. We got to get on down the road here. We both have a bunch of stuff to write. We're going to keep feeding you. Jeff Sintel, Brandon Adams bringing content as well. Lots of stories. We'll be at the football complex covering practice this afternoon. I've got some Towers takes coming. He's got some on the beats coming. And y'all let us know. Let us know in this forum and the other interactivity that we have on Dog Nation what it is you'd like to read about. And I promise we'll react. So for everybody in the studio, thanks for keeping us online and getting us out there into the universe. And for Mike Griffith, we're going to let him splash his face with some water and get ready for some Bulldog coverage after covering the Crimson Tide for us. And we'll have some stuff up this afternoon. Thanks for hanging out with us, y'all.